What up, y'all? I'm Dion. That's Tariq, one half a hoodie and the headband, and we are bringing you Villanova and UConn. Point blank, this is my favorite matchup in the quarterfinals for the Big East. I love this matchup. Eric Dixon versus Dan Hurley. Uh, Eric Dixon versus Solo Ball. Eric Dixon versus Liam McNeely. If you haven't caught on, it's Eric Dixon versus UConn. This is this is 1-on-16 if you include the coaching staff. 1-on-20 something. In MSG, the mecca of college basketball, the mecca of professional basketball, the mecca of entertainment. The stage is set for Eric Dixon to come out here and have a legacy game. I don't want to give a sneak preview of the way I'm leaning, but how do you feel going into this game? Dan Hurley and MSG is a dangerous dude too.
Yeah, very, very, very dangerous. For me, I'm looking at the guards for Villanova. Um, Obviously we know what Eric Dixon is gonna at least attempt to give to UConn or whatever. But Wooga Poplar, Burkus, Longino, I think if they're able to contribute on the offensive end, in the first in the game against in the game at UConn, Poplar had 19, but he took 21 shots to get those. And then Burkus went 1 of 4, and Longino had 13 on 5 of 7. Um, and then they only got what 7 points from their bench. They scored 59 points, shot 38% from the field, and 36% from three, which is not indicative of how they've shot all season long. They are a team that shoots damn near 40% from three on average. So if they can shoot the three ball well, and if they can get some contributions from their guards, um, I think they have a real chance at winning this. UConn has been in some games where they've been pretty lackadaisical defensively,
Mm-hmm.
and then they always try to make up for it with the offense. And
Mm-hmm.
there have been games where they just haven't made enough shots to keep up or to combat the defense. They can't do that in a game like this. You can't do that against a team like this who shoots the ball as well as they do, and against the Eric Dixon who is going to be relentless in his effort of trying to score the basketball. And you're going to be so focused on him that that's when the other guys can step up because they all shoot the ball really well. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if you're as a team shooting 40% from three, that means there's not anyone out there that can't fucking shoot.
Yeah.
Like those are
This,
crazy numbers to have for a full season. So UConn has to be on their P's and Q's in terms of how they want to guard Eric Dixon and not allowing Villanova's shooters to get open looks because if you give them open looks, they're going to knock them down.
Yeah, I mean, I will say Villanova is second in the country in 3-point percentage, 75th in 3-point attempts. That's not a low
Yeah,
number by any means, but that
right.
is, I mean, they could shoot a little bit more, and I don't think anyone would
Yeah,
complain.
at
Um,
all.
but they don't because of how easy Eric Dixon gets buckets, and he's freed up by the spacing that they have. I'm very curious how UConn's going to combat that. Um, I think they're going to flash guys at Eric Dixon early to try to get the ball out of his hands. And if Villanova hits shots quickly, like you mentioned, what's the counter? Because if the counter is just letting Eric Dixon go 1-on-1, I think you could lose. You could lose. You definitely could lose. And I think if I mentioned this in the recap, UConn's my pick in this game. Um, UConn and Marquette are my picks to play in the championship of this tournament. For what it's worth, I think UConn's a really really good team. Both Hurley brothers, by the way, are two of my favorite coaches in the country. I am a Bobby guy first, though, just so everyone's aware. Bobby is my favorite Hurley, but Dan's special in his own right. Liam McNeely is a phenomenal player. Alex Caravan, Solo Ball. This team is has so much talent on them. If you were gonna catch UConn, it's tomorrow. That's my thing. If you're gonna catch UConn, it's their first game that isn't your first game. And if you come out
Yeah,
hot because you got a feel for the arena, you got a little comfortable in some spots that UConn just
yeah,
wasn't able to get comfortable in because they didn't play on Wednesday, you might be able to catch them. I think
yeah.
that's Villanova's best bet. You come out, you play hard, you shoot the ball well, and you let Eric Dixon do his thing. And you kind of just honestly have to hope UConn doesn't do too much. Um, Obviously, this UConn team isn't the same as they were the last 2 years. Do you think the fall off is as dramatic as it's being made out to seem, though?
I don't think it is. I think Dan Hurley's eccentricness plays a part in that.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you win a lot, people are waiting for you to fail.
Mm-hmm.
When they lost those, what was it, 2 or 3 games in a row,
Mm-hmm.
early in the season, like those tournaments.
Yeah, Maui, they
Um,
lost
and
three.
Dan Hurley was losing his mind
Yeah,
after every game and during every game.
yeah, yeah.
That puts a spotlight and not a good spotlight on you.
Right.
And then when you lose games more typically than you've done in the past,
Right.
that's when people are like, oh yeah, now it's a gotcha moment. Like,
Right.
oh, they lost again. Like I knew they were gonna eventually fall off. I knew they were gonna win a championship this year.
Right.
And I think people just like being right, especially when someone's been really good. Like it's happened with the Warriors, it's happened with the Chiefs, happened with the Patriots. Like you're waiting for people to fail, you're waiting for teams to fail so that you can get your gotcha moment. And I think people are trying to do that with UConn already when it's not a given that they don't win the championship this year. Like
You know.
they still have a good a chance as any team in the country because of the talent that they have and the coaching that they have. And I've yet to see somebody stop that offense in
Mm-hmm.
March.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
like people can try to make all these claims that they want. If you're a fan of college basketball and you have a team, you damn sure don't want to see UConn.
Right.
That's all I'm gonna say. Doesn't
Right.
matter if you're Duke, St. John's, Auburn, you don't want to see UConn in March.
I
And you
think
damn sure don't want to see him in April.
you definitely don't want to see Hurley in March or April, right? Like when's the last, like, you know what I mean? I mean he's won the last two championships.
Yeah,
I think the fall of this team is a bit exaggerated. It is fun to exaggerate it with Hurley though, and I think UConn fans should embrace that. I've said it
mhm,
a lot this season on pretty much any UConn video. It's all good, UConn fan. The dogs are on the way. Regardless of what happens tomorrow, you have one of the best recruiting classes in the country. Hurley mentioned 50% of the teams already in the portal. I don't think that's a bad thing. I
right.
think he's going to be able to bring in a lot of talent through the portal. He brought in a lot of talent through his recruiting class. When you combine the two, I think you're going to be preseason top three, to be honest with you, depending on what he's able to do in the portal. So I think the dogs are on the way. But in terms of this game, though, I'm curious what your thoughts are using the Ken Palm line. The Ken Palm line's about what I expected it to be. It's really close. So Ken Palm has UConn -2. It's not a lot of points against the Villanova team that, if we're being honest, doesn't have the same talent that UConn has. But they have Eric
Right.
Dixon and they played yesterday. Um, do you think UConn wins this game by a couple possessions, or do you think this is a close one, or do you think Villanova can win it?
That's a good question. Kyle Neptune talked about going, I don't remember if it was going into the game or if it was like after the game. It might have been after the game where he talked about just them using, even though not all of them have been there for the Jay Wright success,
Mm-hmm.
using those teams and using that culture to build this one.
Okay.
And I think if you're going to do that, the perfect team to build that against would be UConn.
Mm.
Villanova has a ton of history with UConn as a program as two programs who have played in what they played in some multiple overtime games in Madison Square Garden. Like they've had classic games time and time again. If Villanova wants to get to where they want to get to, this is the type of team that you have to beat.
Mm.
Um, so I'm looking at this matchup for Villanova is they take this matchup way more personally and they come out with way more motivation than UConn does. I don't think UConn doesn't come out with it. And again, this is Dan Hurley and MSG, so it's not a given that Villanova can come out and get a win. But honestly, I might lean towards Villanova in this one.
Yeah, I was gonna say, everything I've said has probably lended towards me picking Villanova. I am a betting value guy though. If you're giving me UConn and only 2 points, I'm taking UConn.
Mhm.
I think Villanova has a great shot here. Um, I think they're phenomenal. Like Eric Dixon's a phenomenal player, um, and they played well today. 2 points ain't a lot of points. I do think UConn. I think UConn covers that. I just think UConn's better. Solo ball is electric.
Yeah,
Love solo ball.
that's my dog.
So
I love
solo
solo
ball,
ball,
so
bro.
electric, so electric. So I got UConn in this one. But um, um, I think Villanova has a chance. They have a fighter's chance, but I like UConn in this one. There's just not a lot of not a value there with 2 points. If the spread came out like 7 or 8, I think I'd take Villanova.
Yeah.
Because I do believe they have a chance to win this game, and there's some good betting value there. But with two, there's not enough for me to go away from Hurley. So I think with the 2 point spread, I'm gonna go with UConn. Like I said, the UConn Marquette Championship. Book that. With that in mind, we will have Big East previews and recaps for every game in this tournament. The headband will be back. So the last words you hear from me might be UConn Marquette Big East Championship booking. Everybody like, comment, and subscribe.